On today's Locked On Thunder podcast, the Oklahoma City Thunder season is over. It's time for our annual tradition, Stock Watch on every single player on the roster.
You are Locked On Thunder, your daily Oklahoma City Thunder podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Let's get it going on the Locked On Thunder podcast on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I am your host, media member, and beat writer for SI Thunder, Rylan Styles. Follow me on Twitter at Rylan_Styles. Follow the show on Twitter at LOThunderPod. Email the show, LOThunderPod@gmail.com. On today's show, we're going through the entire roster, and we are doing a stock watch on every single player. Today's show is brought to you by good friends over at FanDuel. Check out FanDuel today because you can make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with the winning of any $5 bet. That's $150 with the winning of a $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. Well, it's arrived. So, we're going to ramp the show up next week. So on Friday, we're going to talk with Joel Lorenzi as long as he peeked behind the curtain. It was going home to Chicago. So as long as he's back and feeling good, we're going to talk to Joel Lorenzi tomorrow to really put a bow on the season. Then next week, we have 4 NBA draft profile and projections, plus a conversation with Richard Stamen at Mavs Draft on Twitter to kick off our weekly series with Mavs Draft and, of course, our annual player profile and projections with all of your favorite Thunder targets. We're going to hit Flip early. We're going to hit Jared McCain early, one of my favorites, Devin Carter early, Tejan Saloon early. So we'll have a lot to look forward to in that department. And, of course, as we get closer to the finals and into the finals, there are going to be notebooks and rumors and speculation that we're going to have to address on the show. So a lot will happen in a hurry. We're ramping right back up every single day. We're going to be here talking Thunder basketball. So subscribe for free across all podcasting platforms so you never miss an episode. I know that this week was a little wonky, but we're going to be back every single day next week in the morning for you talking Thunder basketball. And again, tomorrow we'll still have Joel Lorenzi on the podcast to put a bow on this regular season and preview the offseason. But if you've been listening to Locked On Thunder for a while, you know that every year we have these benchmarks for Stock Watch. And what Stock Watch is we look at the Thunder roster and we project who is trending up, who is trending down, where is that player at right now? And it's a multidimensional rating, if you will, of how they're projecting to be in the future, how they are relative to the past projections, and just what their overall individual outlook is. So we go through the entire roster. We do this preseason, we do this midseason, and we do this postseason. And now that the postseason is over with, and we have all the final data points that we can have, let's go through the roster and say who's going up and down. There's some that will be easier than others. There are some that will launch into massive conversations. There'll be some that we spend 0.67 of a second on. I don't think that that's actually possible, but we'll try. With the way that I talk fast, we can probably do it. Someone get a stopwatch out for that part of the pod. But let's go in numerical order, frankly, because that's how the roster is listed on the official Thunder website. But starting off with number 2, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. You know where his arrow is trending. His arrow is trending up. This was a magnificent season from him. Shai finished number 2 in MVP voting. This is back-to-back top 5 MVP finishes. This is back-to-back All-NBA first-team finishes. This is back-to-back All-Star appearances, this time being an All-Star starter. Shai was awesome this year. And you have a 30-point-per-game scorer who has the motor to play on both ends of the floor, almost led the league in steals, and is able to make an impact on that end of the floor, while also still being the offensive engine that you need him to be, driving the car. I think that with Shai, what's encouraging is he's gotten better every single year of his NBA career to this point. I don't think that that will slow down. Like, I don't think it'll stop getting better. Like, he's still not at the apex of his game, I don't think. Now, the leaps would probably be something that you have to be really looking for. Like, they might not be as loud as they've been in recent years as he's began to climb and began to make this evolution as a player. And it's gone from could he be a number one option? Like, it was not that long ago that we were asking ourselves if SGA could be a number one option on this team. It was the 2022 NBA draft. He quickly answered that question. He goes from fringe all-star to all-star. Is that the best he can be? To superstar, to this top 5 player in the league. The next wave of improvement for SGA will likely not be as in your face, but he can certainly polish off his game. Like, the add just a tick more from beyond the arc. I think the most important part for SGA is simply his playmaking ability. And we'll talk about this again with Chet. There are some things that Chet has to get better at, to be a consistent offensive weapon. That's for sure. But part of Chet unlocking this new level offensively is going to be his table setters like Shai, like J-Dub, being able to get him the basketball. And so those two guys need to find a way to improve as passers, need to find a way to improve as just overall playmakers with their vision and with their trust in Chet and chemistry with Chet to get him the ball early. But that is like the next leap for SGA, and a leap that I think is obtainable. Now, is it obtainable to become overnight one of the best passers in the NBA? I don't think that Shai will ever get to that level, but he can certainly get better from where he is right now. And if you add that dynamic to his game, then you see how things really come together for another improvement, even though right now we might think his game's a little tapped out. We're up against the first break, so we're going to skip Josh Giddey for now and come back to him to open up the second segment. Lu Dort, number 5. Lu Dort's stock, I think, is still trending up. And, it's not like it's going to be, again, just like Shai, this massive climb. But you saw this year that he really reined himself back in, and that led to more efficiency. As you get a continuous boost to this roster, like, you saw that some of those bad habits creep back up a little bit in the playoffs. Those bad habits, I believe, in terms of shot selection and wild drives, stem from the unwillingness from other players to become aggressive. Well, ideally, that's never going to happen again. And so long as there's a player willing to step up and try to make a play, Lu Dort is perfectly fine, being in the background of the band, playing the bass. He doesn't need the guitar solo. He doesn't need any of that. He can just be present, do his job effectively. And so as you see J-Dub get more aggressive, as you see Chet get more aggressive, as you see this roster overall improve, I think that you will watch Lu Dort cut out almost entirely those mistakes in terms of shot selection, in terms of wild drives leading to turnovers. So that's where I think that he obviously improved this year. You saw in the postseason once again that he is an elite defender. Like, Lu absolutely tortured Brandon Ingram. Like, just made him a complete and total non-factor. And Lu did his job even better than expected on Luka Doncic. There's no shutting down Luka. No player on earth will. It goes back to the conversation we have about the big man. Like you can fret and fear about how you stop Jokic, how you stop Embiid. There's no such thing as doing that. There's also no such thing as stopping Luka. Luka is Luka for a reason. You can only hope to provide that speed bump. There's no better speed bump in the NBA than Lu Dort. And Luka has admitted that himself. Lu Dort's a top 3 defender in this league. a player like that who has a natural pathway to grow in terms of what we saw him do this regular season, now doing it in the postseason whenever guys get less timid, his arrow has to be trending up this season. Coming up, let's talk Josh Giddey and the rest of this team. But first, I want to say right now about our good friends over at FanDuel. Check out FanDuel. They're awesome. And right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with the winning of any $5 bet. That's $150 to bet on the spreads, money lines, player props, and more. Go to FanDuel.com/lockedon and make every playoff shot count. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. You can go there and check out the lines on the NBA. It is the Western Conference Finals, and you have the Dallas Mavericks as 4.5-point underdogs on the road in Minnesota, looking to close out this series. Kyrie's only lost one closeout game. It was the last one that he played. I think that the Mavericks will get this done and in this series in 5 games with Lively back, with Luka healthy. So let's go with Dallas plus the 4.5. We're back on the Locked On Thunder podcast, on the Locked On Podcast Network, your teams every day. Thank you so much for making us your first listen every single morning, every single day. We're here for you talking Thunder basketball. Let's talk Josh Giddey. His arrow is simply trending down like it has to be because of what you just came off of this season as a total body of work. I don't think that the arrow was consistently pointing down. Just as we said after the regular season, it was trending up since March 1. March 1 through the end of the regular season, really since the end of the Pelican series from March 1, it was trending in the right direction. Everyone knew, you can go back and listen to the preview podcast that we did for the Maverick series. Everybody knew that, the Maverick series would not be kind to Josh Giddey. And it's okay to have a player like that in the sense of there's only a select few in the NBA who are so talented that you have to play them no matter the matchup and no matter the situation. Josh Giddey is not one of those guys yet. And he's not one of those guys for this specific fit. And you can put some of the shortcomings for Josh Giddey on factors outside of his control. Most notably, the fact that he can't put himself in a better spot. Sure, you can boil it down to being as simple as, well, you've got to make your open threes. Josh Giddey was never supposed to do that in his NBA career. That was never supposed to be the role for Josh Giddey. He does not have a role that's suited for him. He does not have a role that is intended to maximize his skill. The Thunder still have to develop that and find that and leverage that, as Sam Presti said this week. They have to leverage what he's good at. They have not done that to this point. What he's good at is supposed to be this 6'9" guard that is a table setter and gets to the rim, as he did show off some of that improved rim finishing through the latter stages of this season. He was not supposed to be playing off ball as third, fourth fiddle, or a last result. Hey, they're playing so far for you that we have to give you the ball option. So how do you train that arrow up? It's an interesting conversation because we don't know the internal, monologues. Externally, everything's pointing in the correct direction for this partnership. Externally, Sam Presti's saying the right things. Josh Giddey's saying the right things. If you were going to base your opinion on what's going to happen with Josh Giddey's future based on what's out there in the public, you would 100% say that Josh Giddey will return to this roster. However, how does Josh Giddey leverage those skills on this roster? He's still going to play off ball because you do not want to take the ball away from Chet, J-Dub, and Shai. So when he's playing with that group, he's going to have to be this screen setting, find him in the short roll, play make off of that, cutting, dunker spot guy. Because while he's improved his three-point jumper, and I think that he can take another step in that area, it is unfair to Josh Giddey to expect him to become a knockdown three-point shooter, even though you've invested the resources in Chip England, and Chip England has invested in Josh Giddey, and Josh Giddey's really taken to that and has made all the proper adjustments, has put the proper work in. Again, I think that he can get better. He's only 21 years old, and he's going to improve, and he did improve this year from 3, but banking on that is completely unfair. And another season of not putting Josh Giddey in a role that's fair to him is just as it sounds, not fair to him. Does he want to do that? Maybe he does. The only other way to do that in Oklahoma City would, now that you have, bursted the bubble, you've popped open the balloon, and he's no longer on that starting streak of 218 games, and you don't want to mess with what's working. You don't want to mess with the chemistry. You don't want to mess with, the egos and everything else. Now that you've made that decision to end the playoffs, can you go into next season and not have him in that starting lineup to be able to best suit a role for him? And kind of just give him the keys to the car in that secondary group and let him play on the ball nearly exclusively. Is that a good enough role for each side? Because to do that, you'd have to make some external moves if you're Oklahoma City, because you'd have to replace his size in the starting five. Now, to keep him in the starting five, not only does he have to do those things that we just mentioned about being a screen setter and a cutter and then the dunker spot and relinquish what I think is his maximized skill to the most amount of money and individual success and accolades in this league, which is playing on ball, but he also has to figure out how to bring it every single night, regardless of opponent, regardless of if your shot's falling, regardless of your role offensively. You have to bring the edge, the physicality, the aggressiveness on the glass, on the defensive end, every single night. A consistency that he struggled with this year. And again, this year had a lot of outside factors, and whenever things aren't going away, it's easy for them to compile onto themselves, as Josh Giddey has so vulnerably and accountably expressed, which is greatly appreciated. But you see quickly how just saying the right things doesn't necessarily mean anything until it does. Because another thing that was said was that Josh Giddey has another year to extend his contract, where the Thunder historically have not let guys go to restricted free agency. Now, this would be a completely different aspect in all regards of restricted free agency. Number one, you've never had a player embarking on RFA who you've invested this much into, who you have this much of a rapport with, and of a guy who you want to develop. And I would be curious. This is my opinion. I don't know this for a fact yet. And no one knows this until we see some off seasons play out. I think gone are the days of throwing just reckless money at players in hopes that, you play some gamesmanship and mess over their rostering team. Like, I don't think that a team, if you get to next summer with no contract extension, I don't think a team would take to RFA and throw Josh Giddey this maximum contract and say, joke's on you. Now you've got to match this or lose him for nothing, because cap space is becoming so valuable and so indispensable. And cap space is this just resource that if you put yourself behind the eight ball, you have way more penalties than you ever have had. Like, these are some serious, serious restrictions. And specifically, if you're looking at trying to game the Thunder, they actually have a bit of leverage that you typically do not have in RFA, because, usually, like you can see, no one did that with the Lakers last year with Austin Reeves. I think that was a little bit of a sign of things to come, because you're preparing for these restrictions. Whereas the Thunder, there is no shot that they could match a silly contract. If someone gave Josh Giddey a silly contract next offseason, there is 0.0 chance that they can match it, because they are going to have to pay SGA, the Supermax, and make him an $80 million a year player. They're going to have to extend J-Dub and extend Chet to the maximum of their abilities, contractually. So, okay, you can throw that silly money at him, and you're going to be stuck with it. To where then it comes down to that, at that point, Josh's preferences. And you would be able to have the inside lane leading up to the deadline and these other benchmarks of how he's feeling to make your decision. So, while it's important to point out, and I have done it before and we'll do it again today, the historical value of what the Thunder have typically done when it comes to RFA, this is almost entirely different than all those other examples. So I say all that to say we truly will not know the lean of anything until the decision is made. whether that's an extension this summer, whether that is a trade this summer, whether that is just having him on the roster and finding a way to utilize him next season. But his overall stock in OKC specifically is trending down. If I had to, bet money again, that's like we said at the top of the segment, because of what they're saying publicly, you bet on Josh being back and them trying to find a way to make it work. But it's important to kind of give all of the necessary information. J. Will, number 6, stop trending up. I think that J. Will improved this year. He improved as a threat at the rim defensively. He improved defending the pick and roll. It's still not great, and it's not exactly where it has to be, but he did improve at it. He's obviously a top tier playmaker. He's obviously a good shooter for his position and size. I think that similarly to Lou Dort, where like if you saw Lou Dort develop and like the way that Lou Dort got better this year, he got more effective, he got more useful this year, was by a product of his environment around him. And yes, he had to do some self-reflecting. He had to cut out some bad shots. He had to evaluate himself, but in large part because of everyone else. Similarly to J. Will. Like J. Will, so long as you go and bolster your front court rotation, and now he's not your only option, and he's thrown to the wolves, and fans and talking heads are already frustrated by the lack of size on this team, and this is your only guy you can depend on. Like that puts way more of a microscope and way more of a critical eye on him than it will in the future whenever you have a more flushed out, front court rotation. So I think that he can look better in the court of public opinion at that time. So I think that stock overall is trending up. I think that it was interesting to see and to hear Sam Presti talk about how J. Will has gotten more athletic this season. Like that was an interesting call out by him. And I think that that's also true. As we mentioned, he's going up and getting these blocks instead of just being a ground defender. But similar to Lou Dort, pushing him down that totem pole will be good for all parties involved. And similarly, that does not necessarily mean cutting out his minutes or like even lessening his minutes. But you saw how effectively that J. Will played next to Chet. If you give him more opportunities to play next to a big, I think he can look better and play in these double big lineups. I think he can look better. So I still am very bullish on J. Will. And I think that you can do some things even before you talk about how he personally can develop to continue that stock trending upward. Coming up, let's go through the rest of the roster. Whose stock is trending up and whose stock is trending down. We're back on the Locked On Thunder podcast, on the Locked On Podcast Network, your teams every day. Make sure you check out the Locked On Sports Today YouTube channel. Are you tired of Fox Sports or ESPN on the TV all day long and all they do is yell, so you got to turn down that volume? Then make the switch to Locked On Sports Today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel programmed for you every single day to bring you the biggest stories without all of the screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you the can't miss analysis, opinions, and news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or for free on the Amazon Fire TV channel app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Let's continue on talking about this roster. Chet Holmgren, stock is trending up. You can not have asked for a better rookie season. He would have won Rookie of the Year, so not for the just unbelievable Wemby in San Antonio. He impacted winning. He was really the only huge move to elevate you to a top 5 offense, top 5 defense. And what's so scary about this is that he has so many clear ways to improve. First and foremost, he's going to get better shooting over smaller matchups whenever they go to cross match. He's going to get better at that and more comfortable at that. Secondly, he'll get better again by a product of his table setters getting better. And I think that overall, he will get better as a scorer, just trusting himself more to go make a play. You can go back and watch. A lot of times whenever he swung the ball on the perimeter, the first instinct, like as soon as he catches the ball, he's in an athletic position to go make a pass and go make the next swing and go make the next swing and go make the next swing. Changing that mindset of, oh yeah, I'm a top 3 player on this team. When the ball is swung to me, I should first be looking to go make a play for myself and in turn for my team as I draw more attention than I should be to be getting this ball out of my hands onto the next guy. You are the guy. Like you are the guy. Go pull off that spinning through the lane layup. Go back somebody down. Go shoot over somebody. This is the same lesson that J-Dub had to learn last year and did learn. a good or even average shot for Chet Holmgren is better than a lot of other opportunities for his other counterparts. That's just the way it is. It's a star-driven league, and we can't shy away from that at the sacrifice of how blunt it sounds. But like these quote unquote, the looks quality are not the same for J. Will as it is for J. Dub, for Lindy Waters as it is for Shai. Like you have to let your top three guys just go out there and feast, and that's part of what these guys are learning. And it's not just that J. Dub had to learn it. Remember whenever we were having these very same conversations about Shai has to learn to be aggressive with Shai. And now it's a 30-point per game score. These two guys, Chet and J. Dub, let's go with J. Dub, stock rising up. They'll get more aggressive. They'll get more comfortable. And the sky is the absolute limit. Like these guys have dripping stardom about them. Isaiah Joe, you've got to be really excited about Isaiah Joe's future. He really improved as a defender this year. I think that he improved as an on-ball player in a pinch, so to say, of like, you don't want to make that the focal point. Like you want him running a second unit and leading the troops, but you put him on the ball a little bit in the second unit in the half court, and you like to pull up results in the mid-range. You love the defensive effort from him and the improvement there, plus that three-point shooting. Massive. Just massive. Stock trending up. Lindy Waters, I think stock's trending down because of this fact. I think he individually is a better player than he was at the start of the year. I think he's a better player than he was last year. I think he's a better player than he was whenever he started in Oklahoma City. But his contract is up. These roster spots are a premium. And the pathway to minutes in OKC just is not there consistently in terms of on the Thunder. So at that point, for the Thunder stock watch, it's going down. Now, could you catch on in Washington? Whatever. But like, I don't really see the pathway to consistent Thunder minutes. As much as I like Lindy, as much as as it's awesome to see him around and get reps at the end of quarters to try to steal possessions or points as a shooter, he just doesn't do enough to like outbid these other guys. But individually, he's a much better player than he was at the beginning of the year. Ousmane Dieng, stock trending up. Mark calls it the invisible league. That's exactly what it is. Like, no one saw it, so it's kind of like if a tree falls on the forest and nobody's around, does it make a sound? Yes, it makes a sound, and that sound is Ousmane Dieng coming. Like, he is going to be, he's going to be a really big part, of this rotation for the Thunder moving forward. I think he can be a contributor. And the idea of Ousmane Dieng, as he's improved his aggressiveness, as he's improved on the glass, as he's improved as a scorer and a play finisher, the idea of Ousmane Dieng is exactly what this Thunder team needs. Can you actualize that in the NBA? And from what we saw in the G League, I believe that he can. And I believe that it got to a point of, had this been last season, you'd have seen Ousmane Dieng at the buzzer of the season, so to say. But it got to a point where the Blue are winning. The Blue could go to the playoffs. The Blue could win the G League finals, and you could get him absolute consistent developmental minutes. And as Sam Presti pointed out, like you got to also ahead of the Olympics start his off-season program much earlier. And we saw it in New Orleans. We saw it in Dallas. Of like after practices, Oos was there with Chip England, working. And Chip's been at Blue games. Chip's been evaluating Oos's shot, helping tweak it. Maynard has as well. Akinyoye has as well. Like these guys, Cam was, they've all helped out with Oos. And so they've been pouring into him, and you can really see it when you watch the G League, and like he's gonna be a contributor for this team, I believe. Adam Flagler, the stock is going up. Again, from what I know about the organizations Blue and Thunder combining as one in holy matrimony, they really like Flagler. Like they respect Flagler, they like him. He's a very talented kid. He helped the Blue in a big way. Does he have NBA chops? I would doubt it. I would doubt sincerely that he has NBA chops. But can you get better than a two-way guy who shoots the piss out of the ball, as PJ Washington says? As Shai says about PJ Washington, who shoots the piss out of the ball? No. So here's the way that I think that you should start thinking of two ways. Because we used to think of two ways in Oklahoma City as like diamond hunting and you're looking for the diamonds in the rough. Now it's just two ways or break glass in case of emergency guys. It's going to take so much to get to them. Can they do something? So if you were to get to Adam Flagler, think of the guard depth that would have to drop like flies. And if you were to get to your two-way guy, what do you want them to do? You want them to have an elite trait. And being able to shoot the piss out of the ball really helps you. It really, really helps you. And I think that Flagler can do that. So in that case, trending up, but again, take that with a grain of salt as like a two-way guy. I personally would spend a two-way pact on Adam Flagler again. Bismack Biyombo. And is there ever a stock that can just be like at the ground and not moving up, not dipping down? You're not losing money. You're not gaining. It's just, that's what Bismack Biyombo is. Keontae Johnson. Stock is trending up individually. I love Keontae Johnson. What he brings to the table, what he brings as a vibe guy, what he brings as a player who plays bigger than he is. He was one of the most true dogs that the Thunder roster. Like, I know that they all bark, but Keontae's willing to mix it up and actually put his nose into things that most others aren't. The part about Keontae that's very interesting is how do you get on the court? Who do you play Keontae over? I think he's dominated the G League. I think that he has NBA juice. This is a really tough team to crack a rotation, though. So individually, he did a lot of stuff well. And we can expand on that if you want in future mailbags. But like, he did a lot of stuff well. He's really good. But again, how do you get on the court? So I think that he would be in line for another two-way contract. Olivier Sarr, stock trending down. He got hurt this year, obviously. He was a double-double machine in the G League, but he does not have any NBA potential. And never really did. I know he was a fan favorite, but yes, he gets these highlight blocks. He's more often than not at a position at the rim. And offensively, you hope that he has a lob threat, which is available in the G League whenever nobody's playing a true center most of the time, but not quite available at the NBA level for Olivier Sarr specifically. Cason Wallace and Aaron Wiggins, stock trending up for both of those guys. I think that Cason is going to be an all-defensive type of player with that three-point potential. And a guy that if they do send him to Summer League and let him work on ball, he can really develop that part of his game as well. And he can become an option for you as a table setter, as a player who helps you in that category. Wiggins, what can't he do? What can't he do? He saved basketball. He can defend every position. He can score at all three levels. Wiggins is a guy that you must keep around. I wouldn't be shocked if the Thunder technically decline his team option and make him a restricted free agent and then sign him long-term as they did for Lou Dort. But I feel good about Wiggins and the future in OKC. Let's just say that. Gordon Hayward, stock trending down. What are we doing with Gordon Hayward? We've talked enough about Gordon Hayward. Mike Muscala, much like Biyombo, stock is going nowhere. It's just along for the vibes. Both those guys, good vibe guys. The way you hear Bismack talk about his relationship with Shai, the way you hear Muscala talk about his relationship with the Thunder and the community, both great vibe guys, nothing on the court. And Kenrich Williams. I mean, you have to say it's going down in the sense of that's what his minutes say. His minutes were going down. And he did have spells throughout the end of the season where he looked gassed. He looked, as I said, like an old 30-year-old, an aged 30-year-old compared to others. But I still think he has a lot of juice in the tank as a contributing NBA player. But the rotations did not line up with that. But then when you actually give him opportunity in Dallas, he played well in the limited minutes in the playoffs. So it is a very perplexing moment in time. I think that you can, now I might not be using this terminology right, I think that you can short the Kenrich Williams stuff. Like, I think that technically people would view it as going down. I would buy on the cheap because I think that it can go back up swiftly next year. But that's stock watch for the entire Thunder roster. If you want me to expand on anything, you can, of course, drop a comment down below. We'll do another mailbag podcast. We're going to have our draft profile and projections. We're going to have Joel Lorenzi on. We're going to have Mavs draft on. So a lot of content to look forward to. And until tomorrow, be good and be good to one another.